because sit down here so for a long time and get back again. So I don't know if anybody can turn that off. We're just discussing something. Jim, there's a chair over here.
Interesting, right?
Fishing here. There's some letters that's in our package.
Simgiget. Sige naman na. At kabuhin skud. Kaya sa mga sumulbag sa mama yung kasatun. Just a one quick point is that we're on live feed. Am I correct? Okay. Verkocht sa damam kunayit ang magets iski menu umagat loob
Morgen, geworden gaat van de huis. Wat een bak heden mee hem morgen. Geen woorden. Ieder gebloed spuit ook gebloed. Maar joch zet het. Nu spuit ook zet maar de waren gezien. Je hebt precies anders. Dat is deels geget. Geen neemt. Hou je hem nog door en ze zeggen aan de worden lopen. Zou ik eten brood, zou ik eten al gewoon. Neem me in de regen, dan algen. Was ze roodje. Jucht op de dal om shawa. De psych is verzwaarder. Ja, het schiet loop. Ayok. Adauw. En de blij wissel rookt en pak om shawa. Je pomroos naast lo dood wil zien verzwaarder. Pas na mijn eigen spijt deed het. Zou goed dus ik ergens gezien het. Ja, when het na je doe je het goed. Je naam is kaks gaat er maar uit. Maar ze mag ja dat maar zijn. Toen kwam ik in de zoals Jezus. Goed zo maar doen. Amen. Amen.
Right, let's focus now. Genoemd 1 minute silence. Let's gaan de koorden zo. Lottie Brown, Kidneyal, Joe Stevens, Kid Max, and what is his sister? What is his sister?
No, you don't say his name. His
Sister.
Doreen Parnell.
And Doreen Parnell, Patty Wesley's sister. In the wood, we samogit, Alvin we get. And we stand for these fine Gitxsan members that we've lost, and been in silence.
You have to be silent.
Zal ik even de worm dat ze nog hebben. Dat van de worm is niet omgaan. Maar ze zullen dammels van het niet worden. En zien we het. Dus niet een worst op niet wanneer de tocht van de schip niet een dam is. In de wind van Lumps ook gaan ze een dam iets zo doen van een stil alles op niet. Dames family. Why is going to let from there and go to the motion.
Zo is het weer, les wil Gigeenix geloof aan de dood. Ita's agenda, Gitxsan. Number 2, administrative matters. Review and approve agenda by motion. Review and approve minutes, April 16th, 2019 by motion. Update crisis management team, Robert Campbell, Art Wilson, and Brian Williams. Opportunity to have jurisdiction over fisheries, tenure in Skeena watershed. Next steps, motion to hire lawyer for tribunal. Number 3, 2018 administration and budget, nation rebuilding program, 1 year, 3 years. Number 4, next government session, date, crisis management team, only, June 12, 2019. Number 5, other. And number 6, closing prayer with my niece Kiminu. Just need to remind, we're here to discuss the anat of all of these in Gigit that have been affected by the fisheries concern that we have on the Skeena River within our Lahip. The government has taken it upon themselves to continue to allow sports fishermen to purchase a $35 permit, which gives them access to all rivers in British Columbia. the Gitxsan government is looking at taking control of our own lahib. We have been meeting for several months to meet with British Columbia representatives, Department of Fisheries and Ocean representatives, to ensure that continues an open dialogue to the federal and provincial government. All too often we're ignored. However, the Gitxsan here in the Gigeenix office and also in the Git's office have taken that responsibility to look after their anats. I just wanted to provide that brief, and we have different members from Gitxsan's house group. When I talked to Gitxsan, she had informed me that Sanos is her spokesperson, and she's also been invited to this table. I'm not sure what your agenda is, Sanos.
I can speak.
Are you speaking on behalf of
Sanos, would you like me to? Okay.
Because Gitxsan has informed me Sanos is your spokesperson.
I'll just, I guess, explain my actions in handing out the last meeting. We handed out 2 letters and asked to be put on the agenda. We had hoped to be put on the agenda today, but we see we're still not on there. These 2 letters that have been presented do affect the business of the tables, of both tables.
This is, may I?
Thank you.
This is addressed to the GTS Board of Directors. This is not the GTS Board of Directors.
Yes.
This is the Gitxsan governance table, and we're here to deal with the fisheries tenure on the Skeena River.
We, as Will had presented the letter, which it presented to the Gitxsan Treaty Society. Today, we thought, in order to get a response to, as well at this meeting, present to the Gitxsan Treaty Society Board of Directors, with letting everybody here know that we have brought our 2 letters to them as well, to hopefully get a response. But it really does lie here, which is for Sanos to explain why we've come to you here, to these chiefs and to the same chiefs yesterday. So I'll let Sanos explain why we're here today. Or Mista, we're standing on families and peacefully asserting our get. And we would like each and every chief to acknowledge the Indigenous laws before the provincial and the federal laws in these important discussions that are going on. And one of the letters presented follows our IO in requesting an all chiefs meeting where all of us can get together and discuss these important events.
Sanos why Neil algad as a Wilpsnicket en Sherry Shigam the algad loam will dal sketch you no you get the lawyer from Vancouver Gilbert lawyers Nicodan. He did Sherry. She got him on the Nicodan and Nisto knit them and the algach loam Anamdish was Rexcom. The hot sherries. It am a zapper the bleak with zapper to Hogiam Jap netted with Skexen like it now to Jap named the Panocht. I'm so I'll suck them Jap this netted will lick them Skexen some. So with that, Sherry always speaks for us. Yeah. So thank you.
So you want us to provide these letters to the GDS Board of Directors? Is that your direction?
We would like each of the chiefs to read our letter, notice of trespass, and to consider it in the discussions that you're having today, as well as our request. It went to each of the Sim Giget. If you see on the CC list, you'll see we've sent it to each of you to consider. And we just wanted 15-20 minutes to brief you as to the spirit of our request. As you discuss and plan in processes that are in our feeling are representing our Adelph and our Io, as in our feast hall where we would have our grandfathers and father clans and our wilt members witnessing and a part of these important discussions. So if we could just have 15-20 minutes, we would appreciate it.
Put it to the table. Any concerns? Does anyone want to participate with this? Anyone against it? We'll provide you 15.
I have one question to Nicodine and her family. I think this is the wrong arena for it. I think if you want to address the chiefs, you should somehow gather all of us, all 62, and then face all of us and say what you have on your mind. Because if you address one group like this, you address another group like that, you're getting the news out, but I don't think it's, it's my place to really represent just one house. And that's just my opinion as Klima.
Thank you.
I'm not against giving them 15-20 minutes. I'd like to know what that letter we learned earlier, I don't know when it was, that you sent to the House of Megadane. No longer supports GTS.
Suspended.
What was that all about? Why?
We had
It never really explained on your letter.
we could we had asked for a meeting actually to discuss that, and we've never had that meeting. We would appreciate, we welcome to explain why we suspended our support of the Gitxsan Treaty Society.
And on the Gitxsan government, Gitx and Gigeenix, it doesn't show his name on there. And she doesn't attend meetings, so how can you learn what we're doing if we don't say we're Nicodine? She's on the stage 3, Nicodine Francis X. Like we invited all the chiefs, so eventually all the chiefs will be represented in each meeting with the government. And if you don't come to the meeting, how can you learn what's happening? And then try to fix things after the fact. I'm not against anything like you guys. I welcome you guys in there. but you have to explain why things are going this way.
We're
That's
happy
all.
with the dialogue.
واللي جئت مثل لقيتنا واللي كنت قاعد ميتين لاي مثل get snin yeah again side one you can't do that. We say there's about 65 house groups in that much in Twi. You get it. Do I just abandon them because they're from again? Or do you win them? Or do you want them in Twi? Gets.
Yeah.
Are you just gonna abandon them because you're Gigeenix?
I'm too sure I said that Gitxsan and Gigeenix, but eventually it'll all come together.
That's what we've been saying.
Well, that's what I've been saying too. That's why people at the Gitx don't like me.
You can't break it up.
I know. I'm not against what you guys are doing. But that's why they don't like me. I said there's no such thing as Gitxsan and Gigeenix. West, east, it's Aliax. We're not abandoning anybody.
You need to ask meeting, yeah. Headache, Gitx, Gigeenix.
So Giget, hindi sa ako ng shootout ng Sherry, you have 15 minutes from here till quarter to 5.
Sherry.
Yeah, okay, we got this. Okay, just a minute. Start. I just wanted everyone to know that when we took our stand in Southtown, Sadie Harris, Gorm, and Rick Connors, GDC, came. It gedacht no, goeie sachen. In the muddle loaded, sachen the meeting while the chiefs the new loaded. Basically, she had some RCMP on the side of the road. That's all we asked for was a meeting to set things right. Skills, some rest, which was RCMP, so which would Southtown. If it, Alvin, we get and muttles as RCMP, Nicodan will tus. Nicodan, you made them in the walk, and we did with honors. I've got it on video. I hired a photographer that day, and every single one of you people sitting here was there. I have proof on pictures and on a video. When we buried that woman's head that was gambled in Southtown. And that's when all this started. All we wanted was our lahib. And everybody's just taking it apart, taking it piece by piece. Yeah, I will get this. Don't tell me I will get this Gitxsan. They're not. That's Nicodan's territory. And it's time people stood up and said that. It's time you people stood up. You all knew this. This was going down. Now they want to move that one pole that's standing there on top of a Hagoget. They want to move it. You never move a pole, little ayorum. You know, it's so hurtful. It's so hurtful, and I just wish we did this before Alvin died, because Alvin supported us 100%. You know, it really hurts to be slammed by your own people, people who you cared for. Has no lawyer up to do it. The mama gat and Sadie. Want. The mama gat and Arden. I'm chopped it. Will Khalish it. They did a beautiful job with our yoke. And that's all I'm telling you people. We're beaten so badly. On the side of the road, Nicodene's daughter had a heart attack. We had to take her to the hospital at 4 in the morning. My daughter was on 911 for an hour. The cops held her off. We were crying, screaming, trying to get help. And 911 would not answer because the RCMP blocked us. The GDC told them to. Ross could have died. And that would have been, who would have been her father clan? This was Ivan. Ivan Sampson was here. That's her dad. He asked Johnny, he says, would you have been her father clan? Had she died? Had the ambulance not come? A truck hit her. She's still dealing with it. We still don't have a file number so she can take some time off work. We don't have a file number. The RCMP won't give us a file number. So we can't go to ICBC to help her. So yeah, make me look bad. That's what we went through that night. Just women and children. We had no men. No one, everyone's too scared to stand up. There was no men with us. Just us. Auntie Sadie, Nick Dan, Robin, I, my sister. But we went up against the RCP. That was just a horrific nightmare. Something that maybe was never brought to your attention. But we have the injunction. I don't know if any of you read it, where Rick Connors called us down to the dirt. A bunch of nothing sitting on the side of the road who owned no assets. That's what he called us to the court in Vancouver. Those little nothings were just little babies who were running, crying, screaming. So yeah, you can do whatever you want to me, but I'm still gonna stand strong for Nick and our little babies coming up. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not. And I want her to read the letter my mom wrote. I want Sherry to read it.
Just to finish that, the GDC letter was in response on the day I buried my mom. Sadie Harris and Jim Angus and Rick Connors and Jake Kredzniski took our family to court and got an RCMP enforced injunction and threw us off our territory. And that is why I'm involved and their spokesperson. To our young people of Glenbow, so much has been said within our community of Glenbow. Disgruntled complaints, questions on how to vote, lack of unity. Yes, to all those, but we can't deny our heritage. Glenbow survived all these years in our Gitxsan communities without the infringement of DIA policy. And now we're up against provincial policy. We seem to fear losing DIA or realize that DIA or the Queen is enjoying all of our resources and not admitting we, the Indigenous people, own all the benefits from our resources. For years, DIA administration has enjoyed all the benefits from the monies of our resources, education, health, welfare, and social developments. If you were to study political science and be serious about learning how our government works, you wouldn't fear our own traditional system. Presently, who buries those that have passed on and pays for the expenses? Your WILP is responsible. When you understand and learn about our WILP system, you would realize there is no reason to fear it. DIA policy, on the other hand, will buy you a little gray coffin. That's all they do for your deceased. As for the responsibility of our children, I strongly believe in the caring of a community for our children, as was the history of our Gitxsan responsibility. As a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, I would hope I'm not guilty of ignoring the neglect of neighboring children. Even the white man's laws will lay charges if you, as a neighbor, ignore the neglect and unhealthy environment of our innocent children. While I don't know how people are viewed as being nosy and told to mind their own business, I would like to say as a grandma, I'm happy we have caring people taking on the responsibility of caring for our children for a legitimate reason. Yes, sometimes it's used for spite. That's human nature. But be thankful if your neighbors care. Just imagine a house burning with children inside. If we were to mind our own business, the surrounding communities would criticize our own people for not caring enough to try and save them. If we are to think and be realistic in management, we wouldn't be in this predicament we are in now. Housing is at a standstill, no programs for economic development, our councillors are content with honorariums, and we voted for them. Do you see them bringing from their own pockets a contribution for our community? Relations or not, we have to consider how visible are the people we voted into office. If a need arises, do they come and support our people? Let's be realistic. Some of us are picking up garbage for a few cans of beer. It's sad. You and I know this is true. The only times we hear from our elected officials are at election time and when they are drunk and shooting off their mouths about how helpless Glenbow people are. I explained to the person who quoted this to me that the person in question is an abusive, self-centered individual, and if I wanted, could tell a few stories of how our politicians operate. For the policies broken and abused, the neglect of the needs of the people, greed is a sad excuse. We need to learn to function with our own will and strength to be recognized as a respected citizen. Prove what you can do on your own strength, not making up stories to cover up your own weakness of greed. I have a lot of associates and friends who appreciate an honest opinion. We are, in reality, by shooting off our mouths, burying ourselves in trash and garbage. Let's grow up and get real. We have some intelligent students coming up, all in academic programs. I would suggest to council leave our education, health, and welfare alone. Collect your honorariums and let the people in the above concerns look after the programs. Form the following committees: health, education, welfare, and housing. And that is what Sanos was alluding to, that she set up. I'll use the last of my time just to introduce our request for all chiefs meeting, to please keep in mind and emphasize the GTS is at the treaty table negotiating agreement with BC and Canada on a model of Gitxsan governance and is planning to implement it as soon as possible. Most of the Gigeenix are uninformed about this process and what it will mean for them and their WILPs. Going 8 by 8 by 8 by 8 does not reflect our IO on how we, as Gitxsan, discuss important matters. The GTS has a responsibility to consult with the Gigeenix about this, to give them a chance to become informed, and to take direction from the Gigeenix on the next steps. So we ask that you please read the letter carefully and to discuss as needed should you have any questions to ask us. Please note that the letter's request to the GTS is for a series of meetings. It is a reasonable one. It does not depend on a chief being for or against the Gitxsan Treaty Society. Also, even if a particular chief is fully informed about what the GTS is doing, he or she should still be able to sign the letter and support a process aimed at informing those chiefs who are not similarly informed. Take at least 2 copies. We would like a chief to sign and keep a copy, and we would like one to be sent either directly or to us, and we will forward it with ours. And we will present it to the GTS, to the province, to the federal government, and to the BC Treaty Commission. And we would only ask that you're in full agreement of a request for an all chiefs meeting as per our ADAO and our IO. I may ask for your time. Is there any questions that I could answer shortly here? I do appreciate the offer for meeting to discuss our first suspension letter and look forward to the meeting date. Thank you for the offer to meet on that suspension.
Thank you for your presentation, Samas, and your spokesperson, Sherry, and Smooth. We've heard your presentation, and since you're addressing the board of directors, we'll bring your letter, we'll forward your letter to the GTS board of directors.
Where this directly affects this process is the setting up of the crisis management team and the manner in which those representatives were selected. There's a lot of fishermen, I was told, that haven't been involved in that process and are asking questions. So that's why we wanted and felt that when you're talking about jurisdiction, that is talking about Gitxsan, which is talking about our Indigenous laws. And so that's why we feel that the planning process and the decision-making processes that you're undergoing here are undermining our Indigenous laws by not gathering us all at once to talk about these important things, as was our way.
Thank you. So we will proceed with our agenda. I'm not certain if you're wanting a response from this table, but I don't think we've had enough time to digest what you have produced, and we'll have a discussion on when you can bring it to the table. Thank you. So we have the agenda in front of you. We need to approve the agenda as presented.
Before I do make a motion, would we have Gitxsan do the presentations on top?
You just want to add that on the?
Yeah, that's the first,
Okay,
so that way
that's already passed.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll move.
Is there a seconder to the motion?
Is that just so that you can put it on top of the agenda that they were here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second that.
Seconded by John. All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion passed. The minutes of April 16th, review. I can read it out.
One correction on that.
Yes?
I don't know why you had to double up on me for absent.
We wanted to make the point really clear.
that I was absent.
Sorry about that.
So we'll just cross one out, all right?
Okay. Apologies. Any other corrections on the minutes?
Brian?
Yes.
Just a quick question on, for people in attendance. Doesn't matter if they're in person or conference.
Yeah, I guess we should add that on the conference call. Catherine? Thank you. Robert? Corrections?
Did they, no, I'm just questioning, did they do anything about request for shares or meeting? GDC and,
We can address that when we do business.
okay.
There are no other corrections. Do I have a mover to adopt the minutes with the corrections?
So moved.
Moved by Melissa, a seconder. Seconded by Ms. Kiminu. Business arising from the minutes. You had a question, Robert, on the minutes?
No, I was just asking if there's any, anybody address what Sherry,
Yeah, I was just trying to see if there's no mention of us on there.
well, that's what I'm saying, to see if there's anybody, you wanted a meeting with GDC, GTS, probably the GTS and GDC. We don't have no. GDC have their own board of directors.
Yes, but we wanted to make sure that this group was aware of it. There seems to be a lot of overlap, and there are only so many chiefs. And on the GDC board, there was 2 of the chiefs that are GTS chiefs.
Okay, well, that's what I'm trying to find out, if that was addressed. Your guys' request. I guess not.
No.
Well, you have to approach GTS and GDC for more meetings regarding that.
One more time, sir?
You have to address GDC and GTS for more meetings regarding your complaint about the Southtown incident.
No, it was here to make sure that the Gitxsan chiefs here have it, and they're aware that it would affect any relationships or partnerships or agreements that they may enter to. And that we wanted to make sure they were aware that Gitxsan Development Corporation had taken one of the Gitxsan chiefs and put them in trespass on our territory, on their own territory. So that was in response to a request for a meeting, and instead we got thrown off our territory. And so in turn, we said that they are in trespass in our territory.
What I'm trying to get is, did you guys address GTS and GDC for a meeting regarding that? I know you guys explained, I wasn't there,
Okay.
so I don't know anything about it.
Okay, and the request for the GTS meeting was the suspension letter that you referred to, and we weren't granted a meeting with the GTS with regards to our letter of suspension. We had asked for an explanation in that letter of what land title assertions had been accomplished, and we have not received a response.
See, regarding the fee simple, it's all white man law. we're trying to fight that too.
Yep.
So we still don't know how to handle that because according to the Delamoch decision, that you do not touch towns or whatever who's on somebody else's territory if it's already established. That's all I'm trying to explain to you. So it's not our decision, even though we can fight it. Like there's lots of an ad which fee simple land is bought and you can't get to your fishing home. See, and rail puts traction or you can't get to your fishing home. That's what we're trying to fight, crisis management. That's why I asked if you. It's really hard for me trying to grab what.
It's the same premise,
Yeah.
actually. So what we basically said, if the GDC wants to do forestry and log up on other people's territories, in order for them to take those logs onto the highway and get them to Prince Rupert or get them onto a CN rail, they need to come through our territory. So a very similar legal strategy that you're using in crisis management is the exact legal strategy that we put forward back in January of 2018.
Actually, it's a province of BC that's doing the logging.
And
They raped my territory, you should see that mess. Even my youngest granddaughter won't be, when she grows up, it won't be ready for any use. Okay, that's all I wanted to clarify.
Any other business
Thanks,
arising from the minutes that you, Mr. Manu?
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry I didn't get time to read it. Was there just a note that we had distributed the letters on the April meeting notes here? That, just as we were added to the agenda to show?
It would have made a motion for put you guys on it.
Yes, but the last agenda, we were here and we're not reflected on the meeting minutes. So I just wanted to just have a note.
It's on the minutes.
Okay.
2 letters were distributed by yourself.
Yeah, it says 2 letters distributed for Sherry right there.
Okay. So we're just looking for a response or a response from this group with regards to what occurred and what impact those letters will have to the discussions that are occurring here. We affect, all of us are affected. We're all interconnected.
Any other business from the minutes? So we'd like to just to capture what Gitxsan's group is presenting before I move on is that you're basically not I don't need to say basically, I mean that you're wanting to have a series of meetings with all the chiefs, and you want I'm not sure who you're asking to set these meetings up for you. Is that what you're asking?
In the letter, it says as part of the Gitxsan government discussions that you're having, that instead of having them in the manner in which they're being planned and decision making. Oh, so the letter has just asked that instead of having Gigeenix and Gigexsan, that we would have one together to inform everybody all at once about
what. That's what I was asking.
Yes.
You're asking for an additional meeting to put this point across.
To start this process as it should be in the beginning, so that it will have a strong foundation.
So you're asking the chiefs to endorse
To consider,
what
yeah, to
your
consider,
request is?
yes.
Thank you. We will discuss this further and provide an answer for you. as early as we can. I'm not gonna tell you yea or nay at this point.
We'll be at the next meeting.
We haven't had a discussion on it. Fair enough?
Yeah, and we'll come to the next meeting hoping that something will have been.
But we haven't had a chance to discuss it. That's not on our agenda today. So we will probably discuss it at the next meeting. And then give you an answer for the next meeting. We need to have at least a meeting to have that discussion.
And are we part of that discussion?
You're part of the last meeting, you're part of this meeting, and we need time to have a discussion. All right?
In our model, we would be a part of that discussion. When chiefs discussed, we all discussed together and we didn't put the
This
chief.
is what I will find that out.
Okay.
So I would like to move on to the next agenda update, the crisis management team. Robert Campbell, Art Wilson, and Brian Williams. Art Wilson is unavailable. We can start with Robert, and then I'll finish off, or do you want me to start?
Rich is probably basing it on the report.
Is there a report there?
Before, which one? Ready? I mean, get in.
From there on.
So we've had a meeting with representatives from the provincial and federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Patty Hirschfeld from the Mineral Office, and Colin Masson from the Vehicle Office out of Prince Rupert. We presented a number of documents to them, the terms of reference on B2, and the goes on to, and then we have, we discussed jurisdiction and the terms of reference. So what we brought these issues to them. One of the things that, a few of the things that I picked up from my report is that there's a concern about the definition of trespass. So we try to articulate trespass in our docket, our language, and that's what we will take away and have further discussions on what exactly does trespass mean in Gitxsan. We also talked about coexistence, working together. The province also provided information that they needed to have the right people at the table. We felt Patty Hirschfeld felt that he may not be the right person to be at the table. However, he's been at the table for since we started. I believe it's 4 meetings so far. And we also talked about the timetable of continually meeting to continually show the importance of what trespass is for the Gitxsan. We need to partner up on the terms of reference, jurisdiction, and roles and responsibilities to further move on to the tribunal, which we'll have further discussions on later on in this meeting. We expressed the importance, again, we keep repeating ourselves over and over that permits and licenses does not give the right to trespass. And those are the things that we wanted to ensure that the Gitxsan Nation provides our ayok around trespass. So that's the next step that we'd like to take part in. I'll ask Robert to add comments to that.
Yeah, Brian practically said everything what we discussed. And we basically told them there'll be no recreational fishing 2019 within our jurisdiction, Gitxsan. And we also told them we were asking our neighbors, our neighboring nations, whoever wants to join us, preservation of our fish and if possible, enhancement. And I asked data for catch and release. They brought some, but all it has in there is steelhead. It's not only steelhead that they're catching. And what's the mortality of catch and release fish? You know, fish being out of the water for so long and then hooks in their mouth. It's in where did I see that? Yeah, they sent us a copy of what
B14. B14.
B14. Yeah, it's Patty Hurst there.
Yeah.
And that really doesn't say much, just figures. So we're still in the dark. And that was part of our discussion. We don't know. And the same with who monitors the sports fishermen. How long they take the fish out of the water. Because they set the rules there, according to them. How many minutes and then you harm the fish and hooks. But who monitors recreational fishermen? Nobody. So we're still in the dark with that. There's some things that they really don't really like what we're saying, but they have to accept it, and we told them they have to deal with us as equals. And we're going to keep pushing that. Federal, BC, and Gitxsan government. As long as we keep meeting at the table, we're going forward. Maybe it'll take a while, but that's just how it is. That's all I can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any comments, questions? Was, and then we.
Thank you, Mr. Camino. Yeah, you're correct in correcting those people. Steelhead is a trout. They have a different, their metabolism is way different from the anadromous salmon. Salmon are anadromous. They only have enough energy to get to their spawning grounds, and that's it. Steelhead are different. They're trout. So you're correct. You're right to point it out to them, and you keep pointing it out to them. But, trying to use steelhead as an example is not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes.
Yeah, and steelheads all year round, which is the other fish seasonal.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian. I heard you guys say that we keep saying the same thing over and over. You're correct on that. Maybe what'll get their attention is I know in my history in my house, anybody trespasses on my territory, we deal with it. You know, and the history that we have is either they're given some compensation for going on the trespass without asking permission, or they give some of the territory away. You know, this is historically our people have done this, and we'll do the same thing with the trespassers on the Kamshawaya. We confiscate all their gear, their vehicle. You know, we have to go start somewhere. You know, it's part compensation. And I'm not scared to go take home a nice big truck. You know, if they're on my territory, you need permission to go on our territory. I mean,
Okay, I noticed that the question team met on May 10th. Just by coincidence, that's a date that Kispioks has been celebrating for a number of years now. Maybe next year I consider Kispioks as a meeting place, because that's a return of the salmon celebration and celebration of being Kispioks. How Kispioks came about. May 10th is the date that was picked years ago. Well, not May 10th exactly, but close to May 10th weekend.
May 10th was the sports days at Kispioks from years back. It didn't matter what day it fell on, everybody went out there. But I was speaking to a young guy yesterday, and his understanding was that Gitxsans are trying to close the whole river. I'm wondering if we're making it known that it's just the Gitxsan River, well, the part where we have territories is what we are closing, not the whole works.
We mentioned it to their BC, see if they would make communications to the public regarding that. It's just Gitxsan jurisdiction. That's all we have.
Can we also make it local?
Pardon me?
Can we also tell our own guys that we're not closing it down to all the way down to Terrace? But why are we not getting support though? Or are we? From other nations? Are we getting any support from other
Just
nations?
Gitxsan,
Gitxsan?
probably, I'm not sure about Birdsville. No?
Not till we do it in May. Ready?
Thank you. When it first started, quite a while ago, just lately, somewhere along the line, I believe somebody heard what is happening up here in Shen. And I think the people of Vancouver Island jumped on that. And they were also they want to do the same thing because their rivers are way too low and they can't afford to lose all their fish. So they have to try and somehow make sure that they survive. And what they want to do is they want to stop, the people playing with the salmon or the fish. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Gordon, can you pick up anything that we missed out on our report? You may have observed.
Not really. You guys did a pretty good job. You the crisis management team is doing quite well. There's six chiefs on there. They know they're an act, and those chiefs paid for their an act at every feast they go to. They have the jurisdiction based on your gullah, your dao, and the totem pole. So what we determined and concluded at the last meeting with Canada and BC is that those permits do not authorize trespass. They're quiet. The permit just says they can fish, but it does not authorize trespass anywhere. And if those guys with those permits cannot trespass on fee simple land. So now they're on notice that there's no trespass on the Anat. At our meeting last night, we had a Facebook page from the Taltan, but it didn't show up today. Elaine must have missed it, or what page do you have it on? There's a Facebook page that showed the Taltan that closed the Chinook fishing.
Yep, spring salmon, B1.
Spring salmon.
B1.
But what they're doing is they're asking their own people not to fish. They're not saying anything about the white people. What is it? D1. Yeah, D1 is, look at D1 and you'll see. So there is some movement. It says, attention Taltan fishers. To talk about the forecast is low, and then they're requesting that our members do not target Chinook in our food fishery. So they're asking their own members not to fish, which is different from the Gitxsan. The Gitxsan have said no trespassing. We're not saying anything about the fish. We're not saying there's too little fish or anything like that. We're saying no trespass on the Anat, because that license does not allow them to trespass. Bobby, you're interfering with my presentation. Anyway, so that's the permit. So that's what the issue is boiled down to now with Canada and BC. We can argue all day and all night about who's the best fisherman, who catches the most fish, who's the biggest victim. But what we're saying here is that the Anat, there's no trespass. And they ask us why, and we say because we don't trespass on one another's Anat. So I hope I don't see Walter Wilson on my Anat anymore.
Oh, do you have one?
Yeah. I'll catch you next time. Anyway, so that's what it is. We told them that between ourselves, we don't have trespass. And that we self-police it, that when someone trespasses, we ask them not to trespass anymore. And then if they're trespassing, then they're usually there on permission. And that we self-monitor our Anat, and that's how we're going to police this. When we see these Umshawa there, we're just going to ask them that they're trespassing, so please leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. So we'll move on to the next agenda. Opportunity to have jurisdiction over fisheries tenure in Skeena watershed. Gordon.
Jurisdiction. Well, I basically covered the introduction to that, and that's the Anat, and how you have jurisdiction. And I indicated to you that your jurisdiction comes from your Kulak, your Dao, how you fished there for your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and how you've used the fish, your smokehouse. All of that is the Dao. And in the feast hall, we pay, and that's what's respected between each of us. So we don't go trespassing on one another's Anat. And that's basically what we've boiled the issue down to now, is that their permit, their jurisdiction over their permit doesn't allow them to trespass. And the government doesn't have time this year to change that in legislation. They might be able to do it next year, but I don't believe they will ever do it, because all they're selling is the right to fish. And if they're not allowed to trespass on the enact, so what the government has done is open the door. And I'll get you to look at, and I take this time to apologize to Elaine. She did have the documents all in order and good, and I just assumed that one page was missing. So you look at C1. C1 in there, it's C, capital C1. And that's the recognition and reconciliation rights policy for British Columbia treaty negotiations. So this is what Canada and BC are doing. And you go to page go to page C5. Go to page C5 and you'll see self-determination and jurisdiction. And what Canada and BC are doing, and this is them, this is their policy. Recognition of the inherent right of self-determination of Indigenous nations in British Columbia is the starting point of negotiations to reconcile and achieve the coexistence of federal, provincial, and Indigenous jurisdiction. So and that fits right in there. And you go to 35. That's C6, the next page. 35 says, Canada and British Columbia recognize Indigenous nations in British Columbia have the inherent right of self-determination, which includes 35C, inherent rights of jurisdiction and self-government. So your government is the will. You, each one of you, Simgiyet, you're the government with your will. So you look at that whole portion there, section 35 right up to 40. Read that tonight when you go home, and you'll see how it fits right in with the hereditary system. So 2019 is the first time that Canada and BC have recognized the hereditary system. So you back up and you go back to when we first started the Gitxsan Carrier Tribal Council in 1972. We didn't get our hereditary system in there. When we started the court case in 1982, we started with the hereditary system. Then we switched in 1986, we switched to the hereditary system. And finally in 2018, with the UNDRIP, Canada and BC are now working with the hereditary system. So you're the only hereditary system that's taken a step in Canada by claiming your jurisdiction over an act. It's a winner. If we argue about amount of fish, we don't have enough scientists. BC will argue with their scientists. Canada will argue with their scientists. But they cannot argue against the enact. Your enact is a fact. That every time we have a feast, when I go to a feast in Kispiox, in Kitchgukla, in Kitwanga, in Kitmiao, I'm paying for my enact. When our family goes out there and fish, that's the adao. That's how they fit in there. And that's a fact that we have on our side, and the government cannot challenge that. It's a winner, Gigexsan. Now, just to back up a little bit about you, each of you, there's support out there. We look at Facebook, and this stuff here is being streamlined out to people right now. If they're looking at their cell phones now, they could see you. So people are supporting you. Gene Allen phoned me the other day. He wanted to find out what's going on. So I indicated to him that it's his fishing permit and their guiding license does not authorize them to trespass on an act. And it was total silence. And then you see the Taltan now. So that's the jurisdiction, Gigexsan. We're pretty damn strong. We don't have to rely on our Delgamuukw court case. We don't have to rely on the Chilcotin court case. You rely on yourself. You're an act. You're Ayok. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Any discussion? Robert.
Can I make a comment just to answer one of Sherry's earlier questions? Yeah. One of Sherry's questions, Gitxsan governments will look what would it look like at the end of negotiation implementation process and fully answering their questions. We already had our Ayok, our laws before the white contact. Everything was in order. And in some ways it's more stronger than the European laws we're following now. So that's a question that's already in place. We just want to go back to implementing those. The Vegas. That's answer to your, part of the answer to your question regarding it. What does it look like? Okay.
What we meant by what it looks like is where are our indigenous laws, and are they falling under the provincial laws, just as you're showing here? Are we putting our indigenous laws underneath the provincial and federal laws, perhaps in a municipal relationship? And when we're talking about what we would fully look like, for example, the process that's been presented gathers us at the end, versus what we're asking for is to gather us at the beginning to do this important work. And to gather us in the beginning would reflect those ancient laws that we're trying to make valid in today. So it's more about the process, the planning process, and the manner in which we're upholding or implementing those indigenous laws for planning and decision-making.
Well, what we want to do is work with the European law. Same thing with side by side with Ayok or Onuyok. And that's what I keep bringing up to them. If you want to work with the Gitxsan, you got to learn our Ayok. Not just a one-way street. And that's where we're going. It's going to be a long process. Like I keep saying, Rome wasn't built in one day, so take your time. It's for our kids.
Thank you, Robert.
He's too old to be thinking about anything else.
There you go.
Thank you, Robert and Sherry. Next item on the agenda, next steps, motion to hire a lawyer for tribunal. Gordon?
Yeah, okay. Tribunal, we discussed it the last time. And if I get a motion here, then I'll have authority to, I spoke to a lawyer in Vancouver and they're quite interested. And I indicated that if I get authority, that we'll get a letter. And what they will be looking at is establishing a tribunal, which won't be, we'll have a chance to determine who's going to be on the panel. Because we'll have a lot of ideas, but right now we're just getting started as to how to set up the tribunal.
Explain what a tribunal is.
A tribunal would be sort of like a court. So if Gene Allen feels that the no trespassing is unfair to him, he can bring it to that tribunal. And then the tribunal will look at it. And same thing with us. If there's a chief that cannot access an act because it's blocked by the railroad or blocked by a farm, if that's unfair to that chief and his will, that chief can also go to that same tribunal.
Gordon, just one question on the tribunal. Are you gonna, will it, I'm sure you'll have more discussion on it, but would you have one of each clan on there? I mean, representing 3?
Yeah, we'll figure out the makeup of the panel.
Yeah.
Once we figure out the law to establish the tribunal, then we'll start working on the makeup of the panel.
Yeah.
Might be just one person.
No, we need 3.
No.
3 heads are better than 1.
See, it's gonna be a lively discussion.
Any other questions for Gordon on the tribunal of the table?
Oh, okay. I'm not on the table. No, I just wanted to ask you.
So question on the side, Sherry?
I just wanted to ask, with the tribunal, will Chief Stuckett have to be delegated to these representatives that would be representing them? As he was saying, if somebody came on his will would be the one to take the action and to, number 1, recognize the trespass, number 2, deal with it right then and there, as he says, and then, so that's my question, is there a delegation or a signing over to these 3 people that the 65 chiefs would be giving their dahyet over to this tribunal? It's those concerns that I have, that we have, with when you talk jurisdiction and Indigenous law and Canadian law and federal laws. Thank you.
No one can overrule the chief when the chief says no trespass. That is the law, okay? So that's what we're seeing, and that's the strength of it. So nobody's given up their duck yet. But the makeup of the tribunal will be something we'll just look at. Maybe we won't want it. So we'll get the lawyer to put a package together and bring it to you guys. So we'll need a motion if you guys agree with that.
You have a comment?
I think.
I didn't really hear you.
Yeah, I'm good.
No, it's ready to move.
Any further discussions? Or do we go, well, okay, let's need a mover to hire a lawyer for the tribunal.
So now,
Moved by Lois. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Luce.
Behind you.
I saw him first. Discussion on the motion.
Maybe I like what Margaret mentioned, that a clan involvement, maybe we call an ad hoc group, like, Kaboo, and probably Frog, and Gitxsan. So that way we're all represented.
Let's look at the package first.
Yeah, so I think all of that will be taken into consideration once we move ahead to have a lawyer look at the validity of a tribunal.
So that's 3.
Any other discussion on the,
You know, with regards to, what I've heard about, sound like somebody's against the tribunal and, you are for it. We've had no problems with, you know, the team that we put up with regards to the crisis management team. And they're pretty much going by what this table says. They're not making up their own minds. They're going by, you know, the thoughts of this table. So I don't see anything wrong with anything else coming up like a tribunal. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Hands high, please. Against?
Against?
Abstentions? Thank you very much. Motion passed.
Unanimous. I don't make up my own mind.
Number 3, 2018 Administration and Budget Nation Building Program, 1 year, 3 years. Gordon?
Yeah, we submitted a budget to the federal government for the nation rebuilding program, and that's what's funding you guys. So right now, we just got enough money for this table and the other table. Keep meeting. And, things are going good. So hopefully they will consider our proposal again. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon.
We get an increase as each year goes by?
I think you should really consider an increase when we got an act down packed.
Being the funding from the government or us.
Increase for us.
Both.
Okay, thanks, Gordon.
Number 4.
Brian?
Yes.
Just before you go to number 4, just answering Gitxsan's question about, you know, what's all involved with it, who's involved with it. Maybe we should let her know that our table is open, the door's not closed for anyone to be on it, and that chiefs are invited to this meeting. Okay, so, like, you know, quite a few of the chiefs aren't here, but that's at their own discretion. If Gitxsan wants to sit on here, they're welcome on the table. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Our assertion is that our feast hall includes not just chiefs, that it is our wing chiefs that are involved in decision making, and part of our WILP authority are our wing chiefs, who all have roles and responsibilities in decision making, and as well as witnesses in our feast hall, our WILP members are always invited. And I would ask if we could invite fishermen to witness this. I know there's a lot of fishermen that are interested. I was approached, and I'm not a fisherwoman, and I was approached in Kitsagukla when I was there, and they had asked, when are the fishermen going to be asked to witness and to be a part of these discussions?
Thank you, Clifford and Sherry. Number 4, we're looking at 2 dates. The guest is looking at the June 4th. We're looking at either the 3rd or the 5th. June? Of June, correct.
Monday or
Yes.
Wednesday?
I'm open on the 4th, no, actually I'm open on the 5th.
We're not offering the 4th.
I'm not offering the 4th.
So you're
The other team is using the 4th already.
Okay, well, I'm hoping for the 5th.
5th. So we're here 5th so far.
Don't confuse me.
show that.
We're all good on the 5th. Show of hands for the 5th.
Our time.
4 o'clock. 4 o'clock.
This Wednesday.
Correct. We're all good on the 5th. So the next meeting is 4 o'clock, June 5th. Crisis management team only on June 12th, 2019. I would ask Denise Humidil, closing prayer.
Not to share it privately, not privately, it was not our idea that kids in the game, it was them who asked for it. We didn't like it, and again, you have different meetings.
Right.
Can't do that. Oh, can you not?
Didn't like it. You voted, the wasn't like, well, some gain some old, I look suspect you.
Yeah. Well done. Good job, buddy.
I heard you were cold too.